Hello everyone, I'm Priyanka Patki. I'm the head trainer and the co-founder at Snout Scout, the dog family Pune, India. Today we are going to start our series called the Perfect Guide. The first one in the series is going to be with someone who I'm a big fan of. So I've been inspired by her work for a very long time now. So let me introduce our guest of honor for today. It's Sharonika Williamson. She's the director and the head trainer at Clear Canine, that's in Brisbane, Australia. She has been competing in IGP, which is a protection sport, also known as Schutzhund or IPO, since the year 2011. So let's get the chat started. Hi, Sharonika.
Hi, Priyanka. Thank you very much for having me. I'm very, very honoured and very pleased to be able to chat with you. Yes, it's been exciting and I'm looking forward to today.
Okay, so can we start with a little bit about yourself? That how has been your journey? When did you get into this? And what was the turning point that you got into dog training?
Sure, because I'm crazy. All dog trainers are. No.
Of course.
No. So I've always, since I was a little child, I wanted to, I loved animals. I wanted to become a vet, but I was in between wanting to become a vet and then I actually fell into forensics. So I trained in forensic science as well. So I actually do that as a job too. And then I train dogs on the side. But I started looking into, how I could get into the training. And I didn't actually realize that you could train dogs for a living. I just thought you have a dog, you own a pet, and you live with it, play with it, feed it, all that sort of thing. So I wasn't actually aware that you could actually train to be a trainer. So I stumbled across a certification course through NDTF in Melbourne, and I took part in that course and I completed it and finished it. And once I did that, I thought, great, I can train dogs, I can go out there and do things now. And during that time, I started working in a pet training company as a senior obedience instructor for about 2 or 3 years. So I was taking classes teaching pet trainers or pet owners how to train their dogs, how to live with them. And during that time, I got my first dog, and it was a working line German Shepherd. So
Wow, that was your first dog.
my first dog. So in the picture, just hang on, I'm pointing that
Yes.
one. That's Jetta.
Okay.
That was my first one. So she's 9 years old now. But when I got her, so I just started to do things in pet obedience, and I used her as a demonstration dog. When she was about 6 months old, she started doing all the things that young dogs do. They started digging, chewing things they shouldn't be chewing. Washing was being taken off my line. I was thinking, my God, this dog is driving me crazy. What do I do with it? The pet obedience was okay for her. She was great. She loved doing the demonstration work and doing stuff, but she needed more. And a breeder had actually pointed me towards Schutzhund, or what's known now as IGP. So put me towards Schutzhund and said, I'll go and check it out and see what it's like. So I ended up going to a club at the Gold Coast. They were holding a seminar up there or down there, and I attended for the week. And I loved what I saw. I loved the way that they worked with dogs. I loved the way that they trained, and I really loved the environment and the people that were there. So I thought, okay, this is something I want to give a go. And this was probably around about when Jetta was 8 months old is when I officially joined. So I started her at 8 months old, and I used to think that I knew a lot about training prior to that. I knew nothing. I walked in there, and I remember I walked in and I said, this is my name's Sharonika, this is my dog Jetta, and I'd like to, do some training. And they said, oh, what can your dog do? I said, oh, she can heel, she can recall, she can do sit, drop, stand, all this sort of thing. And they said, oh, show us your heeling. I said, yep, she can heel. And pet dog heeling or normal walking was what I was used to. So I was just on the lead, loose leash, and we're just going for a walk. And they said, no, Sharonika, that's not how we train heeling.
Oh, no.
Yeah, when they showed me, I thought, wow, this is amazing. So the sport world really opened up a different avenue, different mindset, different thought. It really challenged me. It opened my eyes to a whole new world of training that I didn't know even existed. And if I hadn't have found that, then I wouldn't have known that there were, ways for my dog to biologically fulfill their satisfaction, their needs. Like, her genetics needs her to work, right? So I needed to find something that was suitable for her. And once we started that, it's like an addiction. It just kept going, never stopped. And yeah, we've been doing it ever since.
Wow. It's like the meme, right? That people say that do you have a mental sickness in your family? And we say, yes, dog sports.
You really do. That's why we're crazy. But so I started training with her. And I'll always, I'm not going to take the credit. It's all the dogs. So she was very amazing. Like, for my first dog, we trialed in trials that we held at the club and national levels, and she got 100 points in tracking. She got IPO1 champion, like national tracking champion, so teams champion. I was very, very excited and happy. I was, I guess, looking at the challenges that the sport gives you, and the way that you train is so different. It's not quite like pet training, but aspects of the sport work have really, really helped me grow as a trainer, and also the aspects from the sport has helped my pet clients, because the way that we train teaches the dogs how to be happy, open, motivated, and you can use bits of that to put into your pet clients and your work. Once I started training and doing this sort of thing, I ended up getting a second dog. So that's Hunter. And I thought, I got my first dog. I've trained in this sport, and you make mistakes, right? You make lots of mistakes. I've got it. I've nailed it. I've done it right. I know what to do with my next dog. No, same thing. Every dog is different. You'll make mistakes with the first. You'll make mistakes with the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth. They're all different. You'll find challenges, curveballs with every single dog that you do train, and that's Hunter now. And he knows I'm talking about him.
Wow.
So, with Hunter, he's a very different kind of a dog. So Jetta's very happy-go-lucky, social butterfly. Hunter's a strong boy, right? He's a boy dog. So he needed handling a slightly different way. So again, I learned even more ways on how to handle that sort of a dog in different training aspects.
Wow.
I've also gone on to do, I have a third dog, Fury. It's my younger one. That's the one you'll see in most of my recent videos, the little black shepherd. She's actually the daughter of Jetta and Hunter. So I breed working line shepherd. Yeah, so not often, but I do breed them. And she's a result of that. And we trialed last year, and both Hunter and Fury, so dad and daughter, both trialed at the club and both passed in IPO2 and BH. So
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That's been a great journey. Wow.
So yeah, I love the club, the environment, and the thing that I really liked was having that sort of, I guess, family feel, because when you do a sport, it really is like a second family. You've got your home life and you've got your sport life, so it's quite busy. In amongst all that, so I've started my business, Clear Canine. I only started that about 3 years ago now. So I've always wanted to train and do it professionally, but I thought, do I, don't I? But I took the leap and I did it, and I'm so glad. I'm enjoying every minute of it. So we offer board and train services. We do training for pet and competition sport dogs. We do online lessons. Teach behavioural issues with dogs, general obedience. We have a puppy development program that we get puppies in that go international, and we board them for about a month, and we train them up in all the basic puppy things and send them on.
Nice. Okay. Wow. So what is it that you're planning in the future? Anything else that you're planning for the future?
Oh. To conquer the world.
Can you tell us a little bit? I'm sure it's a secret, but something.
I've got a couple of plans in place. We'll see how it goes. But one of the things I do want to get going, which I've been meaning to do for a long time, is our online academy. So we can train people who are not close. So we have quite a few people that travel to me for training. They might travel 2 or 3 hours to come and train with me. Wow. So it would be nice to offer those people something a little bit easier as well, so they don't always have to drive. But also the people in the state who have reached out and asked if they can train with me or get mentored, which is, I feel very humbled and honoured when they ask me that.
I'm going to be one of those.
Yeah. I don't class myself as a know-it-all. I always believe that the learning never stops. So even if I think, oh yeah, I know everything here, I really don't, because you never stop learning, right? But online academy is definitely something I'd like to get going. And then, yeah, we'll see sort of in the future. Hopefully I can have more room for boarding things and that sort of things. But I need property. I need space. We only live in a suburban area at the moment, so getting property would be great so I can have some sort of training centre going.
Nice, interesting, great. Okay, that's great. Wow, that's been amazing what all you've done. Wow, Cat PT is saying I've traveled 7 hours to train with Sharonika Williamson.
Kath has an amazing dog, Trixie. You should see her dog. She does beautiful work with her dog. Amazing. She's a lovely lady and
Yeah,
lovely, lovely dog.
beautiful. Okay, so let's start with taking a few questions that generally pet parents, find trouble dealing with. So we'll start a little bit with that. First out of those is obviously, so most often, we see that pet parents are extremely thrilled when they're getting a puppy home. Yeah, I mean, the entire idea of, oh wow, I have a new puppy today drives everyone very, very happy and crazy. But as soon
Yeah.
as you have one, I'm sure in a few days I've seen people really pulling their hair out. So they're
Yes.
losing it with, toilet training. My puppy's biting me. What do I do? He's peeing, pooping everywhere. So is there anything that you would suggest for this situation for the general pet parents? How do they handle these kind of situations?
Sure. So we do a lot of work with puppy development, and one of the things that is you're going to get with a puppy is all those things. Okay, so it's unavoidable. They're going to toilet in the wrong places. They're going to bite. They're going to bark. They're going to do things that you wouldn't want them to do. But the thing to remember that's very important is that they are babies. They're puppies. So we can't really like say you and I are having a conversation. You understand what I'm saying. I understand what you're saying. Your dog doesn't. You have to teach them language. Right? You have to have a communication system with them. And if you don't have that, you can't really reprimand them for something that they don't know. So if a puppy does toilet in the wrong area or does something you don't like, show them something that they can do or show them the right thing to do. Don't get mad at them. Don't think, oh, you're being a naughty puppy. Don't think that they're doing it to get revenge or something. Some people think, oh, they're doing it because they're trying to make me mad. They're not. They're just babies. They're exploring the world. You have to understand that when a puppy is put into a home, they've come from a litter. So they've had brothers, sisters, they've had their litter mates there with them to play with, to interact with. And one of the things that puppies do is they use their mouths. So they will meow, they will bite, that's how they interact and play, and they learn bite inhibition and all these things. So if you do bring home a new puppy and you have issues, say, with toilet training and biting, one of the first things I want to stress is that your training must start straight away. So don't wait too long, straight away. So from day dot, you get the puppy home, have your plan of what you want to do with the puppy. So where are going to be the places that you want the puppy to sleep, to eat? Where do you want them to toilet? Where do you want them to go in the house? So make sure before your puppy gets there, you puppy-proof your house. Make sure that you bar off anywhere that the pup can get into where you don't want them to go, so that you don't have to rely on chasing them around the house or getting angry at them because they're doing something you don't want them to do. So try as best as you can to set them up for success.
Right.
Provide proper enrichment toys. So give them stuff that they can chew on. If you find that they're toileting in the house, one of the things I would be very careful of is if you get mad at the puppy for peeing or pooping in the house, one of the things that can happen is the pup may associate that with you. And then what will happen? The pup won't trust you, and they'll actually go and find a spot that's not in your view to go and do that. And then you'll come across in the room and go, how did this get here? Right, so you have to be careful. So if they do, just take it in your stride, clean it up, take the puppy outside and show them where to go. One of the ways you can teach this is through routine. So one of the 4 things that I teach a puppy is first thing they get up in the morning, straight out to toilet. Right after any meal, straight out to toilet. Anytime they play or exercise, straight away, take them out to toilet afterwards and before they go to sleep at night. So if you keep those 4 things in mind and create a routine around that, your puppy will start to understand that these become cues. When I eat, I go to the toilet. Before I go to sleep, it's bedtime, I go to the toilet. When I wake up, I go to the toilet. And you take them to the place you want them to be. If for any reason your puppy doesn't quite understand that or is still toileting in the house, spend some time outside with the puppy. So go outside, play with them in the yard or the grass or wherever you want them to go. Play with them in that area, spend some time, and when they go, praise them. So then they go, and you don't risk the issues happening inside the house. But it's very common. Puppies won't get bladder control until they're 4 months old. So you've got that time. You're going to expect accidents. It's just a way of life. But consider it lucky. For lots of you may know, I've had a baby recently, right? Puppies only need to toilet train for this much time. Babies are for longer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is something I always say to owners as well, that ask your parents how long it took to toilet train you.
Exactly. But with like mouthing and biting, so puppies will naturally explore with their mouth. So if you have a puppy that is, say, biting you, look at how you're interacting with them. So puppies like to chase moving things. It's exciting for them. So if your puppy bites you, are you going ow or moving your hand really quickly away? What that's going to do is make the puppy go, to get a reaction, I have to do this, right? So teach them that be neutral. Puppy teeth are sharp, but, try to pretend like nothing happened and give them something else to chew on. Give them a toy. Make sure that they're not too tired. When puppies get really tired, they get the zoomies and then they crash and fall asleep. Before they get tired, they can get a little bit mouthy and restless, so maybe they need some time out. So one of the things that I really like to stress about teaching puppies early on too is independence. So the dog and even an older dog, they must learn independence from the owner. So don't have your puppy around you 24/7. Teach them how to be on their own. The earlier you teach this, the less problems you'll have going forward in the future with them. It's definitely important. And socialization is big, very, very big. You must socialize your puppy.
Right. So with independence, you mean that for some time, even when your puppy is around, we need to start ignoring them. We need to do our own thing.
Absolutely. So for example, when I had when we breed litters or we have puppies here, I had Fury as a puppy. One of the things that I was doing was I'd have her in the house with me. I would either have her like with a leash tethered to something secure, or have her attached to me, or else I'll put her in a crate where she can see everything that's going on. She is still included in the family. She's still included in what's going on. She can still see me, but she doesn't have free access to me all the time. So she gets used to me leaving the room, coming back. She knows I'm going to come back. It makes the crate a nice place to be. Crate training is super important for dogs as well. It's not cruel. It's quite safe, and they love it. Dogs need somewhere to relax and be happy. And crate training, we can provide that security for them. So we teach them young how to be independent that way. And also it teaches the dogs how to wind down and switch off. So they learn to soothe and settle, and that's their safe zone that they can go to relax and play.
Right. So there is, even crate training. So in India, it's a concept which is still very new, crate training. So not that everyone crates their dogs. And they actually believe that, it's going to kill the freedom of the dogs. They want to give freedom to the dogs. So what is the time that you need to start giving them more freedom? And, can you tell us a little bit about that? Because they start feeling that creating your dog is you're taking away the freedom of the dog.
Not at all. In fact, it makes so it's not taking away freedom. You're actually giving them more freedom in the long run. Because what it teaches your dog is impulse control. It teaches them how to settle, how to behave in the home. If you can't supervise them, it gives them a safe place to be so they can't get into anything while you're not looking. It doesn't, for people who may be worried that they've got to leave the house, what do we do with the dog? That's the option. You put them in a crate, create a safe space for them, and they'll relax. One of the issues surrounding crate training is some people think, maybe it's, like you say, it's confinement, the dog's like trapped in the cage. That's not the concept at all. When we teach our dog how to settle and how to be confident in being independent, they actually get more freedom by that, because then we can trust them in the house more. We can let them free in the house. We can walk away without watching them. We can teach them these things by rehearsing proper behavior. And the only way we can rehearse it is by setting up the environment and using the tools necessary to show them that. Because if you let a puppy run loose, they'll go everywhere, right? So we need to teach them how to live in our society, in our home, in our life, and it also teaches them about manners. So they learn how to be respectful of boundaries and rules of the house. So I wouldn't be, don't be scared of it. Don't be scared of crates. I'll put up a video of, I actually took it the other day. I meant to put it up, but I haven't had time with baby. But I'll put it up in the next day or two. It's actually a video of my dogs. They crate at night. Before baby was born, we had them in the room. They'd sleep in the room, but we crate them as well. Like doesn't matter which I do. They're happy either way. At the moment, we're just giving baby space, so they're in their crates. So it gives safety for everybody, regardless of how much I trust them, which I'll touch on later. But when we crate them, I don't even have to tell them now. I can go downstairs, I unlatch the door, they hear the latch, they come running down. I have to stop them from going in their crates. They want to get in there. They push to get in there. They break the door to get in. Like I'll show you the video.
Wow.
But when I open the door, I make them sit. So they must show respect at the doorways in that. So when I open the door, they sit, and then they get invited to go in their crates, and they race in and they lie down and they're happy. So you have to teach them that it's a good place to be. And when they learn that, you'll see how much they love it. They'll put themselves to bed in there. It's like our bedroom, right?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Great. Okay. Let's take a couple of questions because people have already started asking us questions. 1 minute. Yeah. So Jaya Prakash is asking, for a first-time dog owner, can I own a Doberman or a Rottweiler? Need an independent breed dog, which can be left alone for a couple of hours at home.
Okay. So first-time dog owner, we've all been first-time dog owners. Priyanka's been a first-time dog owner. I've been a first-time dog owner in my life. One of the things that you must keep in mind, that regardless of whether you're a first-time dog owner or a person who has multiple dogs, it is okay to teach your dog to be left alone for more than a couple of hours at a time. All right. So we start to feel guilty, right? As humans, we get emotional. We don't want to leave our dogs alone. We worry, are they going to be sad if we go? Are they going to be anxious? But this is why you teach them early on. You can own whatever breed you like. However, you must research your breed. Okay. When I got my Shepherd, I researched for 8 months on what I wanted to get. So I switched from all sorts of breeds. I looked at Great Danes, I looked at Dalmatians, I looked at Saint Bernard, I looked at Rottweilers, I looked at Mastiff breeds. Like I looked at all the different types of breeds, and I thought, one, what do you want the dog for? What do you want the dog for? Pet, working, prospect, what do you want the dog for? You have to research the breed so that you know what were they originally bred to do. Okay, so are you prepared to deal with a dog that has working traits? Do you have the time and energy to give that dog so that they're fulfilled and satisfied and given jobs to do that are suitable for that dog and that breed? So you must research the breed. So if you've done your research, then find a reputable breeder. Go and visit the breeder. Go and see their dog. Visit their dogs if they allow you to do it, which most breeders will be happy to show you their dogs. Visit the breeders. If you know of any people that have Rottweilers, go and ask them, or Dobermans, go and ask them what they feel owning a dog. So make sure you look at every avenue before you get into a breed. And if you want an independent breed dog, any dog can be taught to be independent. It's what we teach them of how they're going to turn out to be. So, for example, if with our guys, so I train dogs. I also work full-time in forensics as well. So I do that. And I train dogs, and I board and train, and I breed. So I've got a lot of my dogs must learn how to be alone. If they don't learn how to be alone, and I have 3 working dogs, they will go crazy. So I have to teach them it's okay to be away from me, especially with the baby. They have to learn. I'm not going to be there 24/7 to train you. Like they have to learn it. Now it's just you have to be okay with being alone. My typical day, if say I go to work, I leave my dogs alone for up to 10 hours of a day. So they're happy to be alone for 10 hours. So I have to, obviously I work up to that. Like I might spend, say, a short amount of time away, dog dependent. You gauge it on your dog, right? So if you get a dog, training is important. So you must understand who your dog is, learn who they are, play with them, learn their personality, see what they can and can't do, and then work on that because every dog's slightly different. But definitely, yes, you can definitely leave them alone for more than a couple of hours if you need to, but teaching independence is crucial.
Absolutely. And that actually takes us to the next question, which has actually been the case right now, given the entire pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, and everyone's been at home, 24/7. And now that people have started stepping out during the unlock period, separation anxiety has been a common problem. Every now and then we are hearing, now the dogs are not staying at home. So, what can we do now about it? Obviously, that they haven't started uh,
Sure.
training.
So for dogs who have gotten used to people staying at home, I mean, I like it because I get to spend more time with my husband, my babies, here, all this sort of thing. It's great. But yes, it can have an impact on your dogs. And what happens is they'll get comfortable, you get comfortable, and then when it's time to go, you go, oh, I haven't even thought about leaving them alone now, and they've got into a new routine of you being home all the time. So if that's the case and they already had a routine prior, start your routine straight away. So straight away, just go back to your normal routine and just drum that in. So the dogs remember, they'll remember what the routine used to be. If you haven't had a routine for your dog at all, you need to start creating one. Especially for dogs that have any separation anxiety related issues, predictability is very good for them. If they can predict what's about to happen, they'll be much calmer. If they're not sure, then that's when they start to get a little bit nervous and unsure. But you need to create a routine so that they know this time this happens, this time this happens, and you can do that through cues, right? So teach them what cue means. Before you leave the house, give them something good to eat. Like, that will take them a little while to eat so that they can relax and download into the toy or the food, frozen food or something in a Kong. Just something to keep them occupied. But the best thing, or the best cure for it, is prevention. So creating a routine prior to, and not even letting go of your routine when you're home. So like my dogs I'm home with my dogs right now, but they're in their crates. They're settled. So they just have to learn that just because I'm home doesn't mean you're out with me 24/7. That will in
Right.
fact create more acceptance in the dog to be left alone, give them more freedom, more independence again, but it also will create more attraction to you as the owner. Because if
Right.
if I'm around you 24/7, I love your company, but I won't value it as much as if I was separated from you from time to time.
Absolutely.
So for any
Absolutely.
owner who goes, I want my dog to pay more attention to me, you need to give them a break from you for them to want to love you more. So,
Absolutely. Giving space, right? It's as important even in a human dog relationship.
sure.
Giving space to each other. Yeah. And love is not, it doesn't mean that they have to be dependent on you. Absolutely. That you want them to rather be independent.
Yep. And for
True.
any dogs that have any issues, say they're not quite comfortable with you leaving the house, then do something that builds their confidence. So teach them some games, play with them, make them happy. Like, don't always, like, if you're going to leave the house, don't always just pick up your keys and leave, and then your dog thinks, oh, the sound of the keys is bad. Make the sound of the keys a good thing. So every time you pick up the sound of the keys, give them something good. So they associate that with something good.
Nice.
Leaving means something good. They know you come back. And one of the other things too is, don't make it a huge deal. So if you have a nervous dog, don't go, oh, it's okay, I'll be back. You'll be okay. It's okay, I'll be back, and pet them and love them. Because what happens is you will make it worse. You are confirming to the dog what it feared was that you are leaving, and it is a bad thing because you're trying to make them feel better. The best thing to do is to just be confident, calm, and go, all right, here you go, here's your thing to eat. Leave for a short while, come back, and even when you come back, don't be like, oh my God, I'm home, I love you, how are you okay? You don't do that either. Just come back and be calm still. So for me, my dogs don't have the separation issue, but I still treat them like that. So I leave in the morning, I just go, bye, mate, and then off I go. I don't make it a big deal. So they learn, oh, it's not a huge deal. I come home, I do my stuff first before I go and pay attention to the dog. So
Wow.
they always
Okay.
learn that even if I'm home, don't have to get overexcited or anxious. I will come and see you when I'm ready. So they just
Nice.
learn
That's
to do it.
interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Great. Okay, let's take one more question now. This is Priyanka, who has two dogs right now. So let's read her question. So my puppy, 2-month-old golden retriever, needs to pee every 15 minutes. I have reduced the water intake, just give him water after food, after play, and after waking up. But he still pees every 15 minutes while he's awake. So I take him to the same spot every 15 minutes and tell him to pee. Does that make sense?
Yep. So 2 month old, he's only 8 weeks old. So as I said earlier, bladder control doesn't come in until they're a little bit older. So your puppy may go to the loo. One of the other things I would probably check may not be an issue, but always rule out something medical. So if your puppy is doing something more so than normal, or say if an older dog starts doing something out of the ordinary or you think is odd, always rule out the medical aspect first. They may have an infection or some kind of irritation that may be causing them to go to the toilet every 15 minutes, or it could just be that your puppy needs to go every 15 minutes. Reducing water intake is great. So when I have puppies here, at about just a couple of hours before bedtime, I'll reduce the water intake so that they can have a sleep without having to go to the toilet in the pen or wherever they're sleeping for the night. And same thing. So your routine sounds great. It just may be a case of patience with the puppy. So in another month's time, you may find that it lessens and lessens and lessens over that month, and you'll start to get longer periods where the dog doesn't need to go. Teaching them how to crate also will help with the toilet training, because usually puppies will not go in the area that they sleep. Usually some puppies will, and that's, every dog will throw a code for actually, but usually they won't. So teaching them how to be settled in a crate will actually help with toilet training and teach them to hold on for a little bit longer.
Absolutely. I hope, Priyanka, you've heard that, and I hope that helps. Okay, it's time for my next question. Because I have many questions for you, of course.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what, according to you, is an ideal routine for a pet dog? Like, what should be a routine?
So for me, my routine, and for anybody, it depends on your lifestyle. So I can tell you, I'll do this at 9 o'clock, do this at 12 o'clock, but it may not fit into your lifestyle at all. You have to fix and create your routine around what you do every day. So my routine, for example, is I get up in the morning, I will let the dogs out from their crates, they'll go into the yard and have a toilet, little run around, play by themselves, and then I'll get ready for work, and then they go away, I go to work, I come back home, do my thing, and then, I have training in between them too, so then I take them out for training turn by turn, and then we'll get stuff ready for dinner, then they can come in the house and we have them in the house with us, so they'll relax in the lounge with us, watch a movie, whatever we do, and then it's time for bed, dinner in bed. So that's my routine, and weekends is a little bit freer because weekends you can relax and do what you want. My dogs understand what they have to do, so they know. But yeah, so we just gauge it over our lifestyle, and we stick to a routine, but we can be flexible because there's going to be days where I can't be perfectly in for that routine, but it's important to have some sort of routine for your dog. If you don't, then that's when trouble can start to brew. If your dog thinks, I'm free 24/7, I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, that's when you have problems in the home. So having some sort of routine and predictability, even for not just for dogs with separation anxiety, but for you general every day is also important too. So, but do it to fit into your lifestyle and what you do every day.
Right. Great. That makes sense. Now I have another question that, board and train programs that even you were mentioning that, you guys do board and train programs. So again, that is a concept which is just picking up here. So people are really concerned about, will my dog forget me? Will my dog still bond with me when I'm back? So what is your take on that? Like what should we tell such pet owners?
Sure. So board and train, you need to think of board and train first as a kickstart. So it kickstarts your dog for the training. Secondly, the long-term success of that training depends on the owner and how much they assist with the training to maintain it afterwards. One of the benefits of a board and train, and especially with if the person boarding and training, say, like I put in a lot of work with the pet style of training, but also I throw in some sport aspects in there too. So when owners say, my dog's not going to be, as much into me, it is my job as your trainer and as your dog's trainer to show you how to make that dog more into you. That is my job. My job isn't to take your dog and make it love me. My job is to take your dog and make it love you, right? So when I train a dog, I teach them the foundations that I teach. So one of the things, is like from puppies to older dogs, physical handling is huge. So you must teach that dog how to be physically handled, whatever age they are, so that they're comfortable with being touched and handled, especially if you need to take them to get, looked at by the vet, or someone needs to hold your dog. You don't want that dog feeling uncomfortable, or someone feeling uncomfortable holding your dog because they're not sure if the dog's okay, right? So physical is very important to teach your dog how to be physically handled. One of the other things we teach them is a very strong communication system, so markers. So what I mean by that is, if people have heard of clicker training or yes and reward, that sort of thing, we teach the dogs. We teach the dogs the meaning of the clicker, or the word yes means a strong association with reward. So that word or that sound becomes so magical to the dog that when they hear it, their whole world just lights up. We want that word to be so strong and magical. So we teach the dogs that, and we give the owners that. So we say, this is the word or the sound you're going to use to tell your dog that you have done the right thing, and you watch how they run to you, because they know what it means. So teaching them communication system. So while I like board and train is void of the owner, sometimes that can be a good thing, because the owners can sometimes bring in emotions that you don't need. Okay, and very well-meaning emotions, but sometimes it's good for a trainer to have, or an owner to put their dog into a board and train, so the trainer can do the work, get it all done, give the dog back, and then the important part is handing that over to the owner. The trainer then must teach the dog everything that they have taught that dog during the boarding period, must hand that over, and also aftercare. So the care doesn't stop when the dog leaves that boarding facility. The care happens afterwards as well, to make sure that the training is successful and that it's been maintained throughout. So I don't have any history with a dog that comes in for a board and train. So usually the dogs do listen, because they don't know what they can get away with me or not. So usually when a trainer takes your dog, they can do things with the dog you usually can't, because we get emotionally invested in them. So yes, sometimes it looks like the dogs like the trainers more than the owners, but that's just because of the reinforcement history. So once we hand the dogs back, we teach the owners how to properly then handle that dog, how to make that dog invested in it, and we do that through teaching them through aspects of, like for me personally, for the sports training, we teach them how the dogs can activate them and learn how to live much more enriched, happier lives. So it's not just a dog doing things just because they're told to. They want to do it for the owner.
Absolutely. Wow. Okay. Hetal Mehta here is asking, what is the right age to start board and training for a puppy?
So first, what you want to board and train for? Is it just pet? Do you want to? Is it for sport work? What do you want to do the board and train for? So you can board and train a dog at any age. Like I said, I do a lot of puppy development work. It doesn't mean that just because I train the puppy first up, like I get the puppies before they've even seen their owners. I'm the first person that they get training with. But those puppies go on to their owners, and the owners are their world. So it's not, I'm not stealing anything away from the puppy. I'm just teaching them what to do. So you can start a board and train at any age, but obviously take into account what the reason is. So that's the first and foremost thing. If it's something where, say, for example, you're trying to build a sport aspect, we can do like imprinting things with the puppy. But in that instance, I would also like to incorporate the owner somehow, so that we can teach them to grow together. So that's sort of important for me. But boarding and training a puppy, you can do, for me, you can do it from any age, depending on what you want to do for. The length of time is dependent on what you're doing it for. And of course, the puppy. So how much the puppy is able to handle, that's also something to take into account. So what the puppy is like.
Right. Okay, let's take one more question. How many times feed pet dogs is sufficient for them, like twice in a day or more than that? How many times should we feed a dog in the day?
Okay. So puppies, usually, like if we're talking just general feeding, puppies about 3 times a day. If they're from 6 months old, you can drop to 2. And then when they're older, like 12 months and older, you can stick to 2 or do once a day. What I would recommend, if you want to train your dog and if you want your dog to have want to do things for you, you need to have some sort of resource for the dog to want to work for you. Okay, all dogs love to eat. You have the food. What I suggest is instead of just feeding them once or twice a day, you use that food for training. So take that
Absolutely.
food, instead of giving them the bowl of food, take that food and use that food to train your dog. So feed your dog through training. So I don't look at it when I'm feeding my dogs as how many times a day do I feed my dog. I look at it as how many training opportunities do I have for my dog today. Right? There are
Absolutely.
days where I'm going to go, okay, today it's not a great day. I'm just going to give you a meal. But you can definitely use these opportunities when feeding your dog to use it to your advantage for training. Now, obviously, if we're doing that, people get worried, oh, they're going to get enough food. Like if we're feeding them like that, they'll get their ration of food in the day, not a problem. So however many times you feed in a day is up to you as well, but also breed dependent. So don't overfeed a large breed dog because their joints are still quite, they need to grow and get strong. Same with any like puppy, you need to be careful that you're not overfeeding or underfeeding. So follow the guidelines that you're given. Make sure they're eating a very good diet. So raw feeding is really good. If you feed kibble, that's great as well. But look to add some sort of fresh foods into their meals if you can, just to help create that sort of, I guess, dogs like to eat raw food. But yeah, feeding usually dependent on the age of the dog and nutritional aspect.
Nice. Okay. Interesting. Thank you. I hope you've got your answer. 1 minute. Yes. Okay. So, what I would again now like to touch is one of my most interesting topics is that so India doesn't really have a dog sport culture. Yeah, so we've just about started getting a few sports here. So PSA is one sport which has been there for the last couple of years. So, what would you like to tell pet parents about dog sports? And that, so there is this entire myth that only trainers can participate in sports. There we do have a few hobbies, of course, who are now trying to work their dogs in competitions, but that's not still that common. So, what would you like to tell them? That is it just for the experts, or anyone can if they really want to?
Sure. It's not just for the experts. Okay. When I started in sport, I had no clue what I was doing. No clue. I came in as a complete new person. I'd never seen the sport before. I'd never seen that sort of training before. I was very new. If I thought I had to be an expert to do it, no one would be training in anything. Right. So I think people need to see the possibilities with their dogs and what they can achieve through sport training. And it doesn't necessarily mean that every single person has to do a sport, but I would highly recommend that you learn from people that do, and not just like Schutzhund, IGP, IPO. Learn from PSA, learn from agility, learn from Mondio, learn from all those different sports, ring sports. You need to learn from different people because everyone brings something different to you. And what I may be saying to you may not be relevant, but some other trainer may come along and say something and you go, oh, that's what I needed. So everyone brings something different to the table. So I think you need to be open to learning and don't think, oh, it looks too hard. Right? So people will look at things that I do and go, oh, I wish I could do that with my dog, or it looks too hard. It's not really. Like, it's difficult in terms of the time and dedication you have to put in, that you need time, you need to dedicate to it, but you don't have to be an expert to train in the sport to get benefit. You can go in as a complete new person. All I recommend you do, visit a few different clubs, see which one suits you, which one you gel with, and go with them, because the team that you surround yourself with is very important, and that's what's going to help you in the long run. So my club, Gold Coast Sport Dog Club, I've been in that club for nearly 9 years now, and I love them. Like, the team makes everything. Like, I go to training and I love being around them. It's not just training, it's a social thing too, because they're like my second family. Right? I'm home and I'm at training. I'm home and I'm at training. So you really have to like the people that you're around. So find people that you can help train with, and stay open to the learning. So we don't know what we don't know. It's a famous saying, right? We don't know what we don't know. And often when you go to, you see things like that, you go, it's too hard, I don't know how to do it. But how do you know unless you don't try? And don't give up. One of my two mottos in life is never to give up. And I don't, because I always think, well, what if? What if? So I've made so many mistakes. I was not an expert when I started. I'm still not an expert. I don't even promote.
You are. Stop being so modest. I kept telling you that you are.
No, Priyanka did tell. I was like, no. No, look, I learn from a lot of people. I've learned from a lot of trainers internationally, locally. So there's lots of people I learn from. I'm still learning from, and I like I said, I always believe the learning doesn't stop. So I don't think you have to be put off thinking it's an expert sport only. Go in, have a look, open your mind, and just see what people are doing, okay? And have a go with your dog. You never know. And if you're one of those people like me where your dog's sending you mad and it's got too much energy and you've got a working breed and you need, like, say, for example, I'm going to say German Shepherd because I got Shepherd, but say you've got a German Shepherd or Rottweiler, Malinois, working breed that really can do a sport, and your dog's sending you crazy and you're looking for something to do, go and look at a sport for them to do. And it doesn't have to be, again, Schutzhund, IPO or PSA. Go to agility, go to do go check out the different sports that are around and just see. Building a sports culture is hard because you need the people to do it, right? And it's very, very hard to get that going. And most of the time it's because people can be scared of the unknown, right? They don't know what it is. They don't know what it involves. And people think it's very complex. So by keeping things simple, it's very easy for people to see the results. So for everyone that is a pet owner that thinks they can't do that sort of stuff with their dog, sport training has what's opened my eyes to the pet world of how we can better enrich their lives. I see a lot of pet dogs who are they do exactly what they're told, but they can look a little bit down about it. Our job as sports trainers, if we go on a field and we trial our dogs can't walk out looking sad. They have to be happy. They have to do everything with enthusiasm and happiness and motivation and expression. And if we go out there with a dull-looking dog, they go, what have we done to that dog? And they won't score us very well. So our job is to make our dogs happy and love what they do. So opening up your mind to the sports side of things can be very beneficial to you as a pet parent. Very beneficial.
Absolutely. So from what you say, what I understand is it's going to be more of a commitment as well, whatever you are trying to do. And that takes me to your journey recently, where I've seen some of your videos, which were insane, where you were full blown pregnant with the cute baby bump and you were training your dogs even then. So how do you actually manage to do that? And also your next step of how did you introduce your baby to the dogs? Because a lot of people they have this question about kids and dogs, and should we get a dog? Or a lot of times what happens is they first do get a dog and they have a baby after that. And now suddenly they don't know how to manage the two. And sadly, I've seen the dog getting fully ignored as well, and they're just getting confused. So it's not that they don't want to do, they just don't know how to manage this.
Sure.
So how can we help them understand this? Because I've seen you it was insane, those videos. Yeah.
So training while I was pregnant was very hard. It's hard to walk. I didn't walk. I waddled. I didn't. When I'm healing, I'm waddling. No, it was good. I trained right up until with my clients. I was training right up until about a month before I was due. So I slowed things down in that last month just so I could have some time to relax and kick down and settle and all that sort of thing. Enjoy some time before baby got here. But training, I guess it keeps me active as well. And it was because when I was training with them, my dogs, I've taught a lot of work from the get-go. So they've got their foundations and everything sorted. So I felt comfortable going out and doing exercises with them on the field. If your dog is a bit of not sure or very rowdy or anything like that, I don't recommend having them jump all over you if you are pregnant, because obviously safety comes first, right? And training can always come later. But with the training side of things, I guess if you're in a position where you have a dog that's well trained and can do the bits and pieces, the exercise as well, there's nothing stopping you from continuing your training. I do workshops as well around Australia. So I was traveling as well, doing workshops, just up until the point where I need a break. So I guess it's just, and everyone's different. Some people may not be able to. I was at the point where I was like, I need to stop now. But one of the things that I did get asked a lot when I was training with people was, how are you going to cope when the baby comes? And a lot of the times people would say, how are your dog's going to be? How do you reckon the dogs are going to be? And so when you get asked a question like that, you have to think not just in that moment, and you don't start to make plans when the baby arrives. You must think well ahead of that. So I knew that this baby was coming. Like, there's no turning back. This is happening. So I needed to make sure that my dogs were prepared for that well in advance. So as you know, I have 3 very high energy working line German Shepherds. They need exercise, they need training. They're used to getting trained at the club 2 times a week, average, training every single day, like for the commitment of the sport. And they have to get exercise and have that enrichment going. So then I thought, well, I'm not going to be able to do that with my dogs when the baby comes, so what can I do? So I have to look forward. I look in the future and I go, when baby's here, it's going to be, they're going to be ignored. There's going to be times where I don't have time for them. I have to tend to this baby. There's no question about it. There's going to be days they're not going to be trained. Maybe for a long time, I don't know. I'm first-time mum. I didn't know what I was going to expect, but I needed my dogs to understand that they needed to not do anything. So for months in advance, I started to train them to do nothing. So I literally would, so I weaned them off training. So I would go to training and then I'd just slowly reduce going, so that they started to not have that expectation constantly. And then I started to, at home, we started to set the rules straight away that there's going to be lots of downtime, lots of time for you to relax. So this is where teaching your dog crate training and teaching your dog how to lie down and relax in the house is very important, because it is come and go handy. So with it's been about maybe, my dogs have literally not gone to training for maybe 6 months, maybe longer. They have not done anything for months. And I've purposely done that to prepare them for today. And they are the most forgiving dogs you will ever have, because they know mum's not doing anything. They've got used to this new routine that I've set for them. I've prepared them. They're no longer allowed in the room because we've got that space for baby now. So they've learnt from all these months in advance what the new rules are going to be. So I've established that purposely well before baby was here, so that it wasn't a shock for them. So it wasn't just baby arrives one day and everything in their world changes. They've been preparing for this for a long time.
So now how are you going to go back to the part when you will be training with them? So how will you, how will you get them used to that? You'll just suddenly start. Okay.
Yep, just go back to normal. So, I'll still, they still get free time running in the yard. We'll throw the toy for them, that sort of thing. But I can't commit to that level of training at the moment with them like I was. So they've just learned that they have to deal with it, and they do. They can learn. They're not going stir crazy. They're energetic, yes, of course, but they're not going stir crazy. We can still have them involved in our lives. Like, they're not completely bad. We still have them inside the house every single night. They'll sleep in the lounge room. They'll relax with us. And they're still getting that time with us. So they're not thinking, oh, baby means something bad. Baby means something good. We get to relax and chill and still spend time together. It's just not as energetic as it used to be.
And how was the first introduction?
Right. That was a question I got asked a lot. Oh, how are the dogs with the baby? Something really I find is really important with introducing babies to dogs and vice versa is don't rush that. So I know my dogs inside and out. I trust them implicitly, but at the end of the day, they are dogs. And regardless of how much I trust them, mistakes can happen. And I don't want to be thinking to myself, why did I do that? Or, I don't ever want to be regretting my decision or ever thinking that I could have prevented something from happening and I didn't see it coming. We put, as humans, we put a lot of investment into our dogs. I put a lot of time and emotion into my animals, and I love them dearly. But I didn't rush that process. I didn't come home with the baby in the first day, have the dogs come and visit, or here, take the baby, have a sniff. I never force that issue, and I don't recommend anyone to do that, because they know that there's something in the house. They can hear it, they can smell it. So you don't have to then go, here, be okay with it. I don't want to create a big deal around this baby. I want the baby to just be like it's just a part of the furniture in the house. So I don't create a question for it. So when I started the dogs were separated. I had them outside, and then if they were inside, they were in a certain place of the house, so they didn't access anywhere. And I just went about my business, made sure that my baby was supervised every single time. If the dogs were there, I never walked away from her, even if I left her in the pram. Never walked away from her. I was always around supervising. I never walked up with them and put the baby in the dog's face. The first time I had the interaction happen wasn't until maybe a month later. the proper
Wow.
first interaction. And that was me sitting with the baby, and Hunter came up, and I know him very well. And in that moment, I knew he was ready. He was ready to come and say hello. They never had a problem in the beginning. They never were like, well, what is this thing, or barked or nothing. They didn't even notice she was here. But I didn't want to take that for granted. And I didn't
Wow.
want to be the person to go only if I didn't do it. So I never put myself, or especially a defenseless baby, in a situation where something could go wrong, right?
Wow.
So introducing, I recommend people to do it very slowly. Don't be in a rush to introduce your dogs to your babies, and certainly don't place your baby on your dog, because you never know, right? We can be very civilized human beings, but some days we might wake up and we're not feeling very great, and you might catch your dog on a bad day, right? So, and I'm not saying that kids can't live with dogs. You can have beautiful relationships between kids and dogs, but the introduction, and especially with a little baby, you just need to be so careful. So my dogs are very neutral to her, and I've made it purposely for that, because I've set up the rules that way, that we're not rushing into it. I'm not rushing like you. I think you'll only see one photo where there's like, I'm holding Aaliyah and the dog is just sniffing her from a distance, and then Hunter was sniffing her. That's the only two things you'll see of my dogs interacting with her, because everything is about management at this stage, and making sure that I'm 100% confident everything's going to go well before I start doing anything where we're all together in the same room. So.
Absolutely. So I think what has set you up for success is the entire socializing that you would have done with them since they were young, I guess. So can you tell us a
Yes.
little bit about that? Like, there are lots of, again, myths about dog socializing, that people think, it is more about their dogs playing with other dogs or playing with other humans. But I'm sure, like, the situation that you're in today, you must have done some work right from the beginning
Yes.
for it, right? Some foundation work. Yeah.
Sure. So socialization can be, there can be misconceptions around it. So like you say, people think it's about people and dogs. And I think that comes down to the word itself, socialization. You think social, people, dogs, we interact with things. But I really think instead of socialization, they should call it exposure, because then it makes it a more broader sense. Because what socialization really is not just about interacting with people or dogs. It's about interacting with the environment, exposure to noise, sights, sounds, temperatures, different looking people, big trains, and like whatever you can think of that is in this world, you can use that to socialize your dog with, or expose your dog to. So when you've got a puppy or a dog, you need to be very careful. So puppies from 3 to 16 weeks have a very critical period of learning. So everything in that time they learn is very permanent. And if you miss that window, it's not to say that your dog can't learn after that, but you close that window of permanent learning. And so everything they take in at that point is like a sponge. So you need to take your dog out to, yes, meet people, yes, meet very stable dogs you trust, dogs you can trust to be around, but be mindful that you don't make them the center of attention. So don't make other people or other dogs most valuable. You need to make them neutral, I guess. So the dogs are neutral to them in the environment, but you have to be the giver of all good. Take your dog out to experiences. Take them to the beach. Take them down to the shopping centre. Let them see people walking around. Take them down to a park where they can see other dogs running around, birds flying around. Take them to on a pathway where there's traffic, so they can watch the cars go past and get used to the noise. Take them on different surfaces. So on rocks, on sand, on grates, on different textures, water, so that they get used to these things. So socialization is very, very important for all dogs, so that they grow up to be stable and confident in their lives.
Absolutely. Great. That's really helpful, Sharonika. Let's take one more question. This is from Mantravati Chandrasekhar. He's a trainer in Hyderabad, by the way. So he's asking, what's the balance we find for a customer who doesn't want to use negative reinforcement and it has to be used at that point of time?
So you mean that the owner doesn't like negative reinforcement and just wants to use positive? Is that what you mean?
Yes, I think that is what he means. Yeah.
Okay. So yes, there's lots of people out there who, love positive training, positive reward, positive only training. And look, the work that we do in sport, when you're training with a pet dog, majority of the work that we do is based on rewards. So yes, that we definitely use negative reinforcement in training. So for people who don't understand negative reinforcement, it's a form of pressure on the dog, whether it's social or physical. It's a form of pressure. And we do use that in our training to teach the dogs right from wrong and also to motivate them to do things. So negative doesn't mean it's bad. Negative can mean something positive for the dog, right, when you use it correctly. A lot of misconception is around the not enough education around the whole thing, and people get scared of it. Again, it's scared of the unknown, right? We look at it and we go, oh, it's a bad thing, but it's not. It's really, really good. If that's the case, every single one of my dogs have had negative reinforcement multiple times in their lives. They are happy-go-lucky dogs. We have negative reinforcement multiple times in our lives. We are happy-go-lucky people. It's part of learning. Your dog must learn how to cope with stress in life. And if they never learn to cope with stress, everything's always fairies, rainbows, happy, chirpy, and something stressful comes along, your dog doesn't know how to deal with it. So they must learn. I've had people that have been a bit hesitant with using any form of pressure in training as well. And again, that comes from a lack of education. But usually I will explain to them, why I'm using it. And if they're not comfortable, then I will use what they want me to do. But I tell them it's going to take them a lot longer to get to where they need to be. However, if you allow me to show you, and if you don't like it, we won't use it. Because at the end of the day, it's their dog, not mine. But my job as a trainer is to educate that person and show them the results. Once they can see the results, that's when they'll start to believe in it and see that it's not a bad thing. It's not something to worry about. So your job as a trainer is very important because the way you convey information is what's going to influence that person as to whether they will or won't accept what you have to offer. And most times than not, if you can explain it well and you can show it properly, they'll be fine.
Absolutely, absolutely. So speaking of rewards, I hope Chandra that helped you. Speaking of rewards, Sharonika, how do you generally build your reward system? And do you prefer a particular kind of reward? Do you prefer a tug over a ball or food over toys? Like, what's your preferred reward
Um,
system?
So my reward system. So first and foremost, I teach the dog a very strong marker. So very strong yes or response to the clicker. And I do that by using the food. So for example, when Fury was a puppy, every bit of food she got was from me. She didn't eat out of a food bowl for the first 5 months of her life. I fed her every bit of food. I don't care if my hands get dirty. It's what I have to do to teach my dog good things, right? So as trainers, we get dirty hair, we get dirty hands, but they lick it off afterwards, so it's okay. But for me, training them a very strong yes or clicker, so communication is very important. So that's the first thing that I build in my reward system. The other most important thing is building a relationship, right? So we can teach our dogs as much obedience as we want to. As much obedience, we can give them as much reward as we want to. But if our dog doesn't have a strong relationship with us, then we really don't have anything. You can teach your dog all the obedience in the world, but if your relationship isn't there, you will see it in the dog because dogs don't lie. Their emotions are always there. They can't hide it like we do. So building a proper relationship with your dog is very important. So I really encourage people to learn how to play with their dogs, how to have fun with their dogs, learn who your dog is. You have to know who your dog is. So get to know their personality, what they like, what they don't like, and then you can start building systems on top of that. I always teach my dog the value of food. I teach my dog the value of toy as well. But it's not just about starting with food and then ending with a toy. It shouldn't really be about the reward you're using. It should be about how you make that dog feel with any reward that you give them. So it's about the interaction between the handler and the dog. It's not about what I've got in my hand. It's about us as a team, right? So I teach my dogs how to do value transfer. So what that means is I can give my dog food, and most dogs go crazy over a toy. And if there's a toy there, they won't care about the food, right? So we teach our dogs the value of food, and we also teach them how to switch to toy and then back to food and back to toy and back to food. So we teach them that the value of the item is high regardless of what I give you, because the feeling we create with the relationship and the trust that dog has in that reward system is so strong, they'll happily take anything from you. So when I build it from foundation level. So first they must want what you have. So use their resources, use their food through training to build value for that resource. So you have money. Your food is your money, right? You're putting money into the bank. So when you have that, then you can start building and building and building. It can also be, so the type of toy that I use a ball or a tug, but I don't have a specific only sort of toy that I go to, and it can be dependent on the exercise that I'm teaching. So regardless of if I'm training with a pet dog or if I'm training with a sport dog, depending on what I'm training, like if I'm trying to teach the dog how to work without toys on me, I'd say I'm training a pet client, and they go, oh, my dog will do this, but only if I have food or a toy. I teach them how to hide those toys, right? So if I have a ball and I put it in my shirt, the dog can see the bulge. So I might use something a bit flatter, so like a flat tug or a flat rag or something, so the dog doesn't see it. And then we can start to build trust in that the reward is coming. So building a reward system is building a belief system in your dog. The dog must believe that you have something of value for them. So I don't cheat them. But I don't bribe them, right? They have to believe that they will get something. And that's the sort of mindset that I want the dog to be in. I want the dog to learn to trust that I will give them something as long as they do something for me.
And you always do give them something other than the time that you're on the field, like when you're competing. You do always reward them, right? Because that's another myth that they try to fade off the rewards. So should people do that or not really?
No. You definitely should fade off rewards, but don't do it too quickly. So a lot of people, like we look at something, we go, I want to train my dog to do this, and they rush it. And then they rush to fade rewards and they go, why isn't my dog understanding? So you have to provide those rewards to your dog every single time until your dog can show you they understand that exercise very, very well. Once they understand that exercise, you proof it. So you still reward the dog. You proof it in different environments, different distractions, different intensity of distractions. And then once you have that, then you start to fade your rewards. So then when you put it onto a random schedule, so initially you reward every single time, then you turn it into like a pokie machine. It's not every time you win the money. Sometimes you do. And that's what makes it addictive. And that makes it resistant to extinction. So once you go onto a random reinforcement, that's when the dog's left guessing, when's it coming, when's it coming, when's it coming, and that actually makes the behavior stronger. So yes, learn to fade your rewards, but don't do it too early, only when the behavior is very well established.
Nice. That's interesting. That's a very interesting point. Okay. Actually, our time is up, but can we still take one or two questions?
Sure, absolutely.
So I would like to really know about the mood, the emotions. I have seen a lot of trainers speak about this, that more than the technicality of the exercises, it's all about bringing in the right emotion into the training. So what can you tell us about that? How do we, really build the right mood before the training and the right emotions into the training? Because I have even personally experienced these things. That a lot of times if I am training, but I'm saying something, but my expressions are all gloomy, my dog is suddenly looking at me like, okay, what is happening? And then literally have to be reminded, like, someone has to remind me that smile, smile, what is happening? And I'm like, oh yeah, sorry. So when I get too into the exercise, I sometimes, I get too serious. So how do we work on these things? How do we work on the emotions and the mood? And obviously we can't cheat our dogs. That's the funny part. So I can probably be saying a good boy and I'm saying a good boy like this. Good boy, good boy, good boy. So how do we work on that?
So you almost have to become a good actor as well. So, but if you act, you must really feel it. Okay. So emotion in training is huge. Okay, and it comes down to relationship. You must build motivation in your dog, right? So a lot of the things that we train, you see the dogs do things very fast, very powerful, very confident. It's because they have a lot of motivation to do the work. So when we're talking about emotions in training, it's not just about the handler, it's about the dog, it's about you two together. So yes, the dogs know when we're not quite confident. And what happens is we get so stuck on what we're trying to train. I tell everyone this, we get so stuck on what we're trying to train, we forget about the dog. We're so concentrated on the exercise, we're forgetting about how the dog's feeling. And that's when we get frustrated. We go, why isn't this working? You go in with a plan, but plans change. You go, I'm going to train this today. You go out, you train it, and it turns the other direction. It's a complete 180. Nothing works that you planned on doing. So you have to change it. As a trainer, you have to learn to adapt to the dog and that moment, because they can do anything at any time, right? So having a plan is important, but building an attitude in the dog is very, very important too. So, and you can do that just like I said, you can control their resources. So making sure that they value food, they value their time with you. So if they spend 24 hours a day with you, they're not going to value you as much as if you teach them how to be independent and then you train together. That time together then becomes very valuable. Teach them that play is fun. So learn how to interact with your dog. You know, come up with a system of reward that's enjoyable for you and your dog. And when you train, have fun. So a lot of the time, like, and we get nervous if we go on a trial field. I'll get nervous every time, and I'm like, ooh, and I forget to smile all the time. There's a great photo of me in a trial where I'm walking with my dog, and a friend of mine has actually made me into a little thug life. I'll show you the picture. You might have seen it, but it's like me with my glasses on. They put glasses on me in a big serious look because you forget that, right? Because you're so concentrated. And it's very important to remember to relax and have fun. You know, training shouldn't be a chore. Relax and have fun. And if you find yourself worked up or stressed or anxious or something's not going all right, take a breath and have a break. It's important that when you train with your dog that you're in the right mindset. You have to be in the right mindset for your dog to be in the right mindset. And if you start feeling anxious or you're unsure, your dog's going to know that, and they're not going to do as best as they can. So definitely go in with the plan, but also make sure that you're in the right headspace. And smiling actually makes you feel better. So learn how to purposely smile, because when you start smiling, your brain will trick you into thinking you're very happy. So you can just start to learn how to do those things, and obviously try and set up situations where you might get nervous. So have people surround you and make it so that you're training in front of them. Like we train in the club, we have people surrounding us all the time, so we can get used to that sort of environment. So, and same with not just training on a field, but pet owners as well. If you're unsure, if you're struggling with something and you're not quite sure what to do, take a breath, and if you need to, get the help of a trainer. Like get a professional trainer and get them to help you through. There may be something you're struggling with, and once that's sorted, you yourself will start to relax. But emotions can affect the dog for sure, and we definitely need to make sure that we don't take out our frustrations on the dog. So make sure you're prepared for changes, for things to go wrong. Make sure you're prepared for your own self to get frustrated, and always quit while you're ahead. It's better to stop training too early than too late, because we see the dog doing something really well and we want to keep going. Bad mistake. You have to learn when to stop so that you leave everything on a good note. The next time you start training, it's much better. Another thing too is the time we take to train. So just because I have 15 minutes spare doesn't mean I'm going to be training for 15 minutes with my dog. I can do 5 1-minute sessions in that 15-minute. Is much more valuable. Quality over quantity. Always important. Remember, quality over quantity. So I can train
you do a 5-minute session and then you take a break and then you do another session, is it?
Yep. Yeah. So with my puppy, even my competition older dogs now, I don't train for, I have to train for endurance on the field, but I don't always train a long time. Like I might train for 5 minutes in a day. That's it. That's all I'll do. And then another day I might do 10 minutes. One day I might do 2 minutes. One day I might do nothing. Right. So I prefer to look at it in a sense that if you're trying, like we know dogs need repetitions to learn something, and Absolutely. You need hundreds to thousands of repetitions for that dog to understand the behavior. But I also believe that if you do 1,000 repetitions to teach a dog something, what is the quality of the repetitions you are teaching? I may teach my dog 1,000 repetitions of a sit to teach them how to sit properly, but if I'm not teaching it properly in those 1,000 times, I'm not teaching a very good sit. Whereas if I teach a really good sit in, say, 100 repetitions, I can teach the mechanics of it very well. I'll get a much better result. So quality over quantity every single time.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense. Wow. Okay. Then one more question I have is, while you're training for IPO, while you're training for the sport, do you have a particular order in which you start your work? Like, do you first finish your healing and then start with your retrieving? Or do you start the foundation parallelly? How do you generally do it?
So first and foremost, I teach the dog how to interact with me. Engagement. So focus to the handler, strong focus, strong work ethic is the first thing I teach. Relationship building, making sure the dog understands markers and communication. That's the first and foremost thing I teach. Next thing that I teach is I start imprinting basic obedience. So everyone may do this slightly differently, but I just start imprinting basic things like sit, mechanics of a drop, a stand, so that the dog can learn how to move its body. Then I start teaching heeling is one of the first things I start to teach. So how to get into heel position, luring position for the head, movement. But when I start to teach it formally, I first must make sure that my dog understands basic position. So how to sit in the heel position and focus on me under distraction before moving. My dog must understand how to do that. Once my dog can do that, I teach them how to get to the position. Once they get to the position and they're solid with distractions, then I start doing movement. So I do heeling is usually what I mostly we usually will teach first, because heeling makes up a lot of what we do in the sport. And then you can start teaching things like the hold for the retrieve. You can start imprinting blind runs, so teach them to run around an object and come back. And then obviously you must, we have things like jumps that we teach the dogs to jump over and retrieve a dumbbell, but you must make sure that it's an age-appropriate exercise. So we wouldn't be sending a little puppy over a jump. So you wait till they're old enough and their joints are quite secure enough and safe enough for them to do the jumps. But we can still start imprinting those things by just teaching them little small behaviors like that. So I don't have a set system in which I train it, but I just start giving the dog a taste of all the little things when they're young that I'm going to start to build on as I go. So I don't just teach heeling and then do retrieve and then do blinds or something. I will do every little bit in small sections here and there and progressively build the dog like that as we go.
Absolutely great. That's really helpful. And your other video which I've seen of your motion exercises. Oh my God! Like you say drop while walking, and there's like your dog just falls, like just drops. So can you give us a few tips on that? Because like even with my own dog, I'm struggling. So his down otherwise is fine, but in motion it he'll go like okay, and then he'll go into a down. So can you give us a few tips on that?
Motivation, motivation, motivation. Your
Okay.
dog must learn motivation. So if your dog's dropping slowly, so one of the things that we see is the speed, right? We see a speed of an exercise and go, I want to teach my dog how to do that really fast. And that's what we focus on. Forget about the speed. Don't even focus on the speed. That shouldn't even be in your mind in the beginning. Just forget about speed. Focus on teaching the foundation properly. So when we teach the dog, say, how to do a drop, we teach them mechanics. We teach them that when they do this behavior, they get the reward. So the way that I look at it, if you train your yes or your clicker very strongly, the dog will yearn to hear that word. And if they understand that that yes or that click means a reward is coming and that reward has a very high value to the dog will automatically do the exercise faster. One, through confidence of knowing what to do in the exercise, but two, because they want that reward. So the speed will come through the value of what you have to offer for the dog. But again, we don't teach it through bribing, like, hey, I've got this ball, will you drop fast? Normally that will actually slow your dog down because the dog gets locked in prey. So they go, oh, and they go slow because they're focusing on that food or the toy.
Yeah.
So we do it void. So the dog goes, I do this exercise, magical things appear. Food appears, a toy appears, something happens. So the value of your reward is going to predict the speed and motivation which your dog will work. But you have to build that from the ground up by building the proper emotion, mood, attitude in the dog through using their resources to build that. So if you're building speed, first make sure his drop, he can do it static. So without any movement, the dog must be able to drop nice and fast from static. Then you add your movement and then you build the motivation through using something that he really, really wants to work for. So yeah,
Wow.
So don't rush and have fun with it. Have a lot of fun with it. Don't get too stuck in the exercise. Actually enjoy your dog in the process.
Wow. Okay. I still have questions, but I think we are so much ahead of time already. I think we should stop now, or we can just keep going on. I really hope to have you again, Sharonika. I wish we can do a lot more sessions. And for everyone who's watched, I hope this was helpful. If you all have any other questions, please feel free to visit both the pages. You can contact her, you can contact me, and we are more than happy to help all of you. She's in Brisbane, Australia. So any pet dog query, any sport dog query, please feel free to contact her. And it's been a great, great pleasure having you, Sharonika. Thank you so, so much. I mean, this has been amazing.
No, thank you. I really, really appreciate coming on here and having a chat with you. It was amazing. There's so much more we could talk about. I could talk to you for hours about this. But yeah, no, it's been amazing being here. You've been a wonderful host. You do amazing work yourself. I've seen some of the work on your page and the passion you have for the things that you do, and I'm sure you're going to be very, very successful in whatever path you choose. Yeah, so I look forward to doing more, and I really appreciate that you've invited me here. And yes, anyone who's in Pune, please go and see Priyanka. She's amazing, and I'm sure she'll be able to help you with your dogs. But yeah, I've really, really enjoyed the chat, and I hope people got something out of it. Again, I'm sure we could have spoken about it a lot more, but we can save that for another chat.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Great. Thank you again. Bye, bye, pet parents. Bye, everyone, whoever has been patient and has watched our video. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And yeah, thank you to the pet parents out there. I know that sometimes sports stuff can look quite flashy, but it really does have a